Hello and welcome to this video. This is Tim and we are once again on the rapid road to improvement. Okay, we're playing CLOUDRIDER and kicking off with e4. We have the center counter, the Scandanavian with the knight f6. I think we can choose here between d4, c4, knight c3. I'm just going to play d4 and then follow up after knight takes d5 with c4. So queen takes d5, that's interesting. Let's just think about that for a moment. I think we want to be playing c4 here again to gain the tempo, but there is queen e4 check. But in general, what White wants to do here is gain tempo on the queen. So let's just have a think about this. We obviously can't play bishop e2, otherwise we would lose the g2 pawn. If we play queen e2, then queen takes d4. So it might be forced here to play, we can play either bishop e3, that blocks. And knight g4 might be a problem, but knight g4, we can then play, let's just have a look at bishop e3, knight g4. Can we play bishop d3? No, we can't. We can't. Okay. So knight e2 and knight c3. So this might backfire, but I think knight c3 will dislodge the queen nicely. I don't think black can whip up anything quickly, so we might need another tempo to get the bishop out. But in general, we should gain a tempo here with knight c3. If queen c2, I think we could probably just exchange queens and not be worse there. You know, still we have good activity, we have a good center. Okay. This is fine, I think. So what about just in this position, just knight g3, just asking, or even better probably is just bishop e3 here. Bishop e3 or bishop f4 perhaps. Bishop f4 hitting the c7 pawn. Queen takes queen is fine for me. There's no other threat. There is a threat to take on c4 actually. That potentially is an issue. The other option is knight g3, attacking the queen, forcing probably the trade, and then we have a centralist. I think I'm going to do that. I think this is fine. Most likely we'll have queen takes d1, and then we just need to decide, do we recapture with the knight, which is moving backwards, or do we just play king takes d1 and ask black how he's getting developed? He has to spend a tempo on the bishop anyway. I think king takes d1 is okay. Black needs to move the bishop now. Okay, this doesn't seem to me a problem. We can either put the bishop in the way and get the centralized king, or we can play f3. Where will the bishop go to if f3? E6 will run into d5, so he's probably going to have to go all the way back. So I think f3 is good here. He's probably going to have to go all the way back to d7 now, and then we have bishop d3. We're going to get rook e1 to follow. The king can probably settle quite nicely on the c2 square, and I think white should be better there. Yeah, so there's bishop d7. So I'm thinking bishop d3, and we're going to meet knight c6 with bishop e3. Let's just check if then knight b3, perhaps bishop b1. I think that should be fine. So if knight c6, yeah, so my idea is bishop e3, and then if knight b4 to attack the bishop b3, we go back to b1, or even out to f5 actually, and then yeah, we can even, if knight's here, we could even play bishop f5. Okay, so getting a tempo. Now, we have to be a little cautious here, because after bishop moves, the d pawn is attacked. So I think we either want a3 to curtail the knight a little bit, or possibly d5 immediately doesn't look good. Bishop king c2 is not possible because of knight b4. We could play bishop f5, bishop takes f5, knight takes f5, but then rook takes d4. And the other option is to come king e2. It's rather centralized, it might be risky. But can black actually do anything about that? I don't know. I'm not sure black can really do much about that. So a little bit risky here. Okay, so now the question is, do we want to kick the knight and just let it take, or do we want to play bishop f5, bishop f5, or we can even just play bishop b1 and then boot the knight away next move. I think that's okay, you know, I really think that's okay. We're going to play a3. I mean, here for black will be something like e6, but then after a3 the knight comes back to c6. There's not really anywhere else you can put it. Okay, so just a3 now, booting the knight back. Let's think about why black played h6. Is that to play g5 or just to stop bishop g5 himself? So now I think we want either knight ge4 could be good, threatens messing up black's pawns, and if knight takes knight then we play a fe with a very strong center. Yeah, that looks good to me. The other option is bishop d3 and then centralizing the rooks. If we play bishop f5, I think that makes black's life easy because he exchanges. So I think let's play bishop d3 here. If black plays g5, I think that's weakening some squares. Okay, he goes for that. So then now knight e4 can be met with bishop g7 if takes. Okay, that's the idea. So knight e4 takes, bishop g7 defends. The other option is just to push on here. Where does this knight go? I mean, this is very annoying if black has to play. If white has to play. Okay, we might regret this, but I think b5 is pretty annoying for black. So I think black has to play e6 now so that they can put the knight on e7. You don't really want to play knight b8. White has quite a big center here. I think my king is reasonably safe. We're a little bit behind on time. We want to get rooks on probably e1 and d1 and put the king on f2. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so now if b5 simply knight takes d4 check, so we can't allow that. Now we can answer that with d5 though, I think, and then the knight will come to e5. That's the idea. That's the idea. Is there anything else we can do? We could play knight b5, but that runs into a6. We could play knight d5, but that also doesn't work because takes. So we might have to play d5 here. I didn't think about that move. It is good, but this bishop is, you know, back on e8, which can't be that great. Now we don't have to. We could just leave this here and put a rook in the center. And if takes, I think that's fine. I think we'll allow black to take because it's difficult not to allow that. If we move the bishop, we're going to lose the c4 pawn. Okay, so I think this is fine now. And we can bring the other rook into the center. And I think white is better here. It's just I'm not sure how much better. Black will play bishop g7. So maybe that we want to play this knight in. This knight in because then yeah, this knight in because then we're removing it from the attack. And I think the threat is possibly to play knight takes, and then after bishop takes we get knight e4 with tempo on the bishop. Okay, the knight goes back. Wow, that's really asking me to play c5, but if c5 then knight e5. So this is one possible move, is just to play now, is to play f4 to stop the knight coming to e5. And we're going to do that because I don't want knight coming into e5. Okay, f5. So now the option would be something maybe knight c5 coming into c6. That looks awful for black. So I think if knight c5, you're going to have to play knight takes c5. I think that looks good for me. I think the problem piece for me is this knight g3. Okay, let's just double check there's no reason not to capture this. We could play pawn takes. I mean, it's definitely an option. Messes up my pawns. But I think bishop looks good. We're getting a tempo on this pawn, potentially. We don't know if we can take that, maybe not. But, okay, so he uses a tempo to... And now you see, I think, king f3, knight d2... Can we not just... Hang on, let's be clear. There's a pawn on prise here, no? This pawn is surely on prise. We have to take that. The rook is on prise. I think we want to come back here. There's no check just for the moment. So we are, looks like a healthy pawn up now. If we can bring our h rook to the center. I'm going to offer the trade because that's definitely in my favor, I think. So we'll pre-move the recapture. If rook e7 check, I think king f3 is fine. Now, once again, if king f3, we might want to play king f2 so we can challenge the e file, though. That's the only issue here. Now, and so we've got a couple of issues. We want to get off the e file and get a rook, the h rook to the e file, I think. And then we want to find a better square for our knight. Now the knight really wants to go to f3 and go to e5. Now that doesn't look like a great move because you're actually, then you can't check me. So surely now just king f. I mean, you can play c6. You can play c6. That may be the idea because then d takes and my rook is hanging. So maybe maybe rook here is good. Time is a little bit short now. But maybe just king f3, king f2, and if you play c6, I can just bring my other rook here, and there's no entry squares here, and in due course, so how do I get my knight to f3 and e5? That's what I want. Knight e2, g1, f3, that's an option. Knight e2, g1, f3, that looks possible. If g5, that leaves the f5 pawn, so g5 is not possible. If c6, we can't take it, but we can simply bring our rook to d1. Okay, now we can't play rook d1, so that's potentially an issue, but we can play c5 here. c5 looks good to me. Let's hit that rook. Once again, we'll pre-move the recapture, and then I want to play rook e1. What about putting this rook on e5? That's horrible, isn't it? That's really horrible here. Once again, we'll pre-move the recapture. If g5, we can take this. Okay. Oh, this rook is on prise now. This rook is on prise. So what's the right way to do this? We want to take this. Do we just play this first? Rook takes rook, and rook takes bishop. That's winning. Oh no! Oof, I nearly did it. Rook takes rook, then there's bishop takes rook. So simply this. And winning a piece. So now we pre-move the recapture. Rook takes d5. So you're going to win a pawn here, at least one, but we can take the a7 pawn. I think that should be good. It's just really finding squares. We haven't got that much time actually, so okay. So let's now come over here and hit the g pawn. And then we want to place, I think, knight e2. If g6, okay. This knight wants to come to f4 to hit the rook. Oh, we're going to have to be jolly quick here. Now we're forking these two pawns. So I think we're going to win the g6 pawn. So probably rook c6 will be played. Now we can take on h5. Okay, let's do this. If rook takes pawn, we're going to take the f pawn next. if you start checking me, I'm going to end up on h3, block it, and then block the pawn. Let's take with the knight and get the knight a bit more central. We've got knight here check now in some lines. Or actually knight here. I mean, if we just exchange everything on this square, yeah, we can actually force a winning ending now. This is check, so this is winning now. Let's get rid of that. So this is just a winning ending now for white. So we can pre-move this now. And there's no way for black to attack the pawns, so he's got to move back. We're going to play this move and this move. Yeah, I think this is straightforward now. Okay. Usually get to this point in the game when you see that the win is inevitable and you can breathe a deep sigh of relief. Now what we hope is that my opponent doesn't make me wait for 3 minutes. Yeah, so we'll just keep all our pawns. There's no need to give up the h-pawn. It will be quicker for us to make 2 queens probably than to give up the h-pawn and then do it with queen and king. And we get the resigns there. Okay, that's good. We'll just pause there. Okay, so let's just quickly race through the opening here. We've got to the point where black's played knight f6 instead of the immediate recapture. d4 is the main move, so that's good. Queen. So knight takes d5 is now the usual move, because the idea of playing knight f6 is so that you can recapture with the knight instead of putting your queen. I think if you're going to play knight f6 and then take with the queen, you may as well take with the queen immediately. So that's why this move is a lot less popular. Now, c4 is not the main move though, but that's partly because so knight f3 seems to be best here. But c4's actually got better results for white by a small amount. This is obviously probably because it allows the check, but queen e4 with 2 black wins was played. And now bishop e3, that was what we thought about. We have got a couple of good players playing this line. Knight e2 was played by me. Let's just have a look at bishop e3 and playing e5 immediately. That looks like a nice break to me, to kind of break things open. And this pin is a little bit awkward. You know, you can start looking at stuff like knight g4 to hit the bishop. That's why I went for the move that I played, knight e2. We might check with that with an engine shortly. Okay, I've just brought the game forward to this point. At this point in the game, black has exchanged queens and forced my king to the d1 square. I think in black's shoes now, you've got to act pretty quickly because white has got the pawn center. So I think black wants to play stuff like knight c6 with the tempo on the d pawn. We dance the bishop e3, get castled queenside, get the rook, and get some central control. Instead of that, black played this move, bishop g4 check. Well, okay, the bishop's under attack, so it's got to move, that's fine. But I think here just maybe bishop e6 is better, bishop d7. We get the check and then I get another tempo with f3. And I think white's better. I mean, if we check this with the engine, I think white would be at least 0.6. I may be wrong about that. Let's have a look. Yeah, 0.5, 0.7 there for white. So it is good for white, this, with the central control. And I think the other key moment in the game was, if we just go forward to this point here, once again, we have this move backwards with the knight. I don't think that's great. I think black just should accept that, you know, this knight can exchange itself, the knight will come to e4, and then this bishop's got a good diagonal. I don't think that'll be that bad for black, but coming back seems too slow. f4 to stop the knight gaining e5, and then this move f5 forces me to go to knight c5, and then at this point here, well, I think essentially black probably has to play bishop f6, and I think things are difficult for him. If I had to guess, after bishop f6, I would say that this is maybe +1 for white. Actually, interestingly, it likes black, and that's obviously the 2 bishops. That's very interesting. So that's me again misevaluating the position. Interesting. Okay, fair enough. That's the two bishops, but I think it's difficult to open things up for black in practice. Why does it want white to play b5 here? Interesting. I'm not sure about that. After king b8, however, white's just better with this clear pawn up. And we came back, and I think it's relatively straightforward now. Obviously, black blundered at some point and we won an extra piece. But if we just go back to the position around where black played knight e7, this move here. So after knight ce4, it thinks black's a lot better. This is really interesting because I thought white was clearly better here. It wants to play b5 to break up this central pawn duo. That makes a lot of sense, and it's not a very human move, but you can see why it's good as soon as you see it. The alternative is knight d7, which is apparently still okay for black, but knight takes c4 is good for white. So I'm quite wrong in how I saw this position. Let me just go back and check one more. After king d1, yeah, I think black's a lot better here. So my whole plan of allowing this capture and thinking that it was good was not. So let's just see where white went wrong there. Switch off the engine for a moment. If we just go back. So is this wrong to play knight g3? Should I just play queen takes queen? If queen takes queen and bishop takes, if I play knight g3 now and bishop takes f1, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to play knight takes f1? And that probably is possible. Rook takes f1 might be okay, and then king d3. Let's just see. Okay, so white's better here. So this line was better. It does like rook f1 here, or king f1. King f1, bishop e3. Okay, that was better than what I played apparently. Okay, and then I've just moved to this position here where we were talking about the fact that it's black to move and the knight is attacking the bishop. And he played bishop g3 and I gained the tempo. And it thinks if black simply puts the bishop on g6, he's quite a lot better. The move played, that gives white a big advantage. So that was a crucial moment in the game. White getting this big advantage with the tempo. Now he can't stay on this nice diagonal. He's got to come back to this much more passive diagonal. And now white is a lot better. Best move for white here is bishop f4, hitting the c-pawn. Bishop d3 still an advantage. Knight c6, bishop e3, castles, and then it wants to play bishop king e2 is what I played. That's okay. And you can see the other moves, king e1, it wants to play a3. So I think I'm sort of more or less on the right lines with once we got to this position. All right, thank you very much for watching. This is Tim with the Rapid Road to Improvement, and we'll have more rapid games soon.